when you celebrate, you have to celebrate biblically. If you do a study of biblical celebration and rejoicing before the Lord for acts He's done in the past, it usually involves food and wine. Deuteronomy 14 outlines the second tithe that the Israelites were to give, which was a tithe of their products, even though it was sold for money, where they're to go to Jerusalem and throw a big party, and to make sure everyone was invited to this party, not just the rich kids. So biblically, celebrating something, you look back to what has happened in the past, right? You rejoice with your feast now, but all biblical rejoicing and celebration looks forward to, it's like a rehearsal for that final marriage supper of the Lamb, which involves a feast. And so I think when we say we're going to celebrate the Reformation, a biblically literate person goes, celebrate food and wine.
When Nehemiah came back to Jerusalem during the captivity, and Israel is in shambles. The walls are all broken down, there aren't a whole lot of people there, and they rebuild the walls. But when they get to celebrate it, it says that they gathered the musicians, or the singers, who had built themselves villages all around Jerusalem. There were musical suburbs all around Jerusalem, from which they called these musicians, and then they assembled two large thanksgiving choirs, one stretched out along this wall and one stretched out along this wall, and they sang praises back and forth under the leadership of Jezrahiah, their director, and they sang so loudly it was heard afar off. That's what's recorded in the account in Nehemiah, is that music was a part of that, and that's what we ought to do if we're going to remember something like that.
You know, the Reformation was part of a broader movement which had ad fontes, return to the sources as its motto, and that return to the sources guided much of Reformation theology, justification by faith, sola scriptura. All these wonderful Reformation doctrines were tied to going back to the sources, and it spawned academic institutions. And we see ourselves as an institution as part of that heritage, and therefore as a college marking Reformation Day makes a lot of sense, because we see ourselves as part of that.